Welcome to Talk to Me. I'm your host, Brenda Warren, the Solutionist, and it is Face It Friday. I'm so excited today because I am joined today by my friend, Dr. Kimberly Wilson. She is a life and marriage family therapist. She is an organizational psychologist, a retired Marine, oorah, 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 a speaker, author, and executive coach. She assists organizations to address some a systematic. Well, I get my words all jacked up today already. Systematic challenges such as workplace culture, with an emphasis on burnout and executive coaching for women. Her proprietary Cure Your Burnout system transforms organizations and women's lives to prevent and cure burnout. And I'm so excited that today our show, and I'm going to go back, and our show is sponsored today. Yes, it is, you guys. Are you ready for this? It is sponsored by uh, uh, I'm gonna see if it comes in. There we go. It is sponsored by Soul Searching. Get on board for transformation using the tap in method. It is my second edition that is going to be launching on February 11th. We're having the launch party. If you'd like information about it, then you can DM me on Instagram at Brenda the Solutionist, or you can also email me at Brenda the Solutionist. That's Soulutionist at gmail.com, and get all the information about this party. Because if you want to help me become a number one bestseller, you got to join the party and show up and purchase a book. With that said, Dr. Kim, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so very much for having me today, Brenda Warren. This is a pleasure to be here with my fellow sister in arms. And I'm just excited to get into it today on Face It Friday.
You know, every Face It Friday, I've been having people come on the show and help me face something that I need to face. And today, I need to face the fact that burnout has been a real thing for me. And I really have been having to take breaks and take a step back. And, you know, even just now starting the show, me being having brain fog, I didn't even do my intro for this show. But you know what? This show must go on. And so we're going to continue even with that. So I know I'm at that place where I feel like I'm a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest and I'm losing. So I'm so happy to have you here on the show to talk to us. But let's, so that we can set a really good foundation for those listening. Could you define burnout for us?
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. And I want to contrast it, explain it by contrasting it with stress, because stress is something that everyone is very familiar with. And burnout is kind of thrown out very capriciously, like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
burnt out on chocolate, I'm burnt out on this. And there's a very distinct difference because stress is something it's typically short term. It doesn't go on persistently. It may be because you're trying to complete a project. You, like you talked about, launching your books. You
Mhm.
may have something that you need to do. There's something unexpected, so
Right,
there's
right.
something that you need to engage in that causes some short-term stress. And that even can be something good, which is called eustress, such as you're working toward a degree or you want to publish a book. Those are good things, but they cause a certain amount of distress, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Burnout is contrasted because, so who defines it as being specific to workplaces? But it's more long term. It's persistent.
Okay.
There's no relief in sight. There's a lack of hope. You know, you don't even
Mm.
believe that things are going to get better anymore, and there's a depletion of your ability to resolve situations, and a sense of a lack of control. Does that encapsulate it a little better? Give you a little
Yes,
distinction?
because I can tell you, I have definitely felt like I have lacked control over the past few months. Back in December, Dr. Kim, I injured myself during exercise, and it was a re injury of my herniated disc. So
Oh,
for a
wow.
few days, I couldn't even get out of bed. And I'm currently in physical therapy. Now, you take that happening right at the height of when we're about to shift into a new year. I'm trying to lay the groundwork for my mastermind. My book is relaunching. Matter of fact, I have like 4 books launching in the next 90 days: a children's book, a business book, a relationship book,
Wow.
and the second edition that's going on. When I think of burnout, I'm thinking I am not sleeping like I should, and I am just tired most of the time. I am getting in a little bit of workout now because I've been cleared by the doctor to resume physical fitness, but it's slow going. And I'm like, where do I go from here so that I don't end up back at this place of feeling like I am basically sinking in quicksand?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I ask people to begin to do whenever they consider changing their lives, and usually there comes this point where we have to face it because we're no longer able to summon up the resources or the will to even resolve the situations that they're in, is doing an assessment. And that's part of my 5C system, and I call that consider. So you need to consider the context of what's going on and identify the problem,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes there's an internal issue, and
Right.
that's how we are engaging with the challenges that we face. And sometimes there's external issues, those external pressures. So sometimes there are systems that we are engaged in that
Mm-hmm.
need to change, and there are very little things that we can do. Sometimes we have to come out of those systems. If you're in a toxic workplace culture that refuses to change, there's very little that you can do to change the culture if you don't have some power or some ability to shape the way those systems engage. So assess, like that's the first thing. Look at
Okay.
the way that you are solving problems, how you're communicating, um, your family, your friends. What is the dysfunction that is going on in your life that is creating the problem? And sometimes that's very difficult for people to target, to actually look at the dysfunction that's going on, because it asks them to face or recognize this is problematic behavior. And sometimes the problematic behavior comes not only from just ourselves, but from those closest to us. And that's very risky to do that. And sometimes even self sabotage. Are we?
Mm.
What made you perk up about self sabotage?
Because, Dr. Kim, one of the things that I talked to a lady recently was about that. She asked me what was going on in my life when I had the injury. And I told her everything was going really great. And she asked me, is it possible that that injury was part of a self sabotage because things were going so good? And now that put me back in a place where I was, uh, like I was treading water because so many things were starting to click for me. The speaking engagements were increasing, clients were increasing, different things were happening. And then all of a sudden, was it going too well? That my injury was a form of self sabotage. And I had to really look at that and say, is it possible? Because she pointed out, because she knows me, that there have been times as things start get on the uptick, that all of a sudden I had these unknown illnesses or injuries that seem to set me back for a month or two.
Right. And and self-sabotage is so insidious. Uh, we don't like the unknown. Like
Mm-hmm.
most people won't even buy a different toothpaste or a
Yeah.
different ketchup. They would tell you, my mother would absolutely say, no, you need to take that back to the store. We get
Mm-hmm.
X brand, not that brand.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And if people are that loyal to their toothpaste and their ketchup,
Mm-hmm.
imagine talking about fundamentally changing the way your life operates, what it looks like when you don't understand what's possible. So rather than us asking how much better than it get,
Mm-hmm.
we say, I don't know what's over there. Maybe I need to stop. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
moving too fast.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not good enough.
Mm. Yeah.
So we engage in that self-sabotage, and it's a protection. It's a protection for who we are and the way our way of life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's difficult to face that. So that's the first thing that I ask people to do. Begin to, where are the problems arising? And often you can do that. Some people have a somatic response to
Mm-hmm.
dysfunction in their lives. Like some people clearly tell me that their gut gets tight, or they begin to clench their teeth, or their heart races, or their thoughts begin to race. You begin to experience something in your body that tells you this interaction is not correct, and that's like a warning, early warning system. So
Mm-hmm.
almost like the alarm.
So let
And
me ask you, right, we're going to stop right there for a second and say, when you say the first step was to assess. So in my case, if I was to assess where I was when I had the injury, I realized that I was doing too much. I think it's really time that as a, when you're a solopreneur, you wear
mhm,
many hats, and
absolutely.
oftentimes you can stretch yourself thin. One of the things I did as part of my own assessment, Dr. Kimberly, especially after having our conversation that we had prior to the show, was I took a look at my schedule and I started setting some clear office hours. So I know that's going to help me going forward to not getting overwhelmed and not get to where I thought burnout really leads. So, how does that fit into the steps that you're about to share with us?
Well, and that goes into the next step, actually looking
Okay.
at where we can conserve.
Okay.
How can we manage our energy? And actually, I ask clients to also do a values and energy exercise, because that can cause a lot of burnout and incongruence when our behavior doesn't match our stated values. And
Okay.
often when I see this the most is when people say, "Oh, my faith is the most important thing to me. My children are the most important thing to me." And then I ask them, let's see how you spend your time.
Yeah.
And children or faith get about that much time,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and their work or their hobby takes up all the rest of that and everything else. So there's some incongruence with your stated values and your actual behavior. So sometimes when you get in alignment with that, when you begin to shift it to what you say is important, so either you're going to need to shift and claim what your actual values are, or you're going to need to shift your behavior to match your stated values.
Okay. Okay.
Then your life is more in congruence, and you don't have that dis-ease.
Okay.
You know? So
Got
not
it. Got
disease,
it.
but that dis-ease,
Mm-hmm.
which is what disease is. Then I ask them to look at the impact of the energy that they expend. So where you are expending it, how much is it taking out of you? How do you feel? Are you energized? Are you drained? Are you depleted? That begins a clue to say this may not be the thing for me. So it's okay if it's short term. If you have to engage in something like your book launch, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
launch it, but this isn't going to go on for 8, 9, 10 months.
No, absolutely not.
There's a product at the end, your book will be launched, you can go on. But if
Mm-hmm.
it's like something where you put on the gas and you just don't let up, that's a continuous um, output of energy that you don't have time to replenish. So
Absolutely.
really beginning to look at that, see if there's an area that you can begin to detach. Sometimes we are overly attached to outcomes or things that we have absolutely no control of. I meet so many women who are attached to the lives of other family members, that
Mm.
they feel like they are supporting or assisting them. Actually, they're trying to control their
Mhm.
lives, but they do it with the best intentions, but they have no control over it, and that's creating a sense of burnout because you're trying to make somebody live a life that they don't desire. You think you're helping and not. Do you know anyone that's done that?
I've done that, Dr. Ken. The control freak in me is always about fixing everything and everybody around me. But I have learned to step back and provide the opportunity for people to fix their problems themselves. I begin to ask the question, what do you think? Not what I think. Because in the past, I really suffered from fixititis,
Mm,
which will create burnout in itself because I want everybody to be happy, to be positive. to the point at one time I felt that I was really promoting some toxic positivity. And I had to take
Mm,
a step back and realize everybody don't want to be happy. And that's okay. It's,
right.
you know, and so when I come up to something like burnout on this Face It Friday, I'm facing the fact that my behavior was creating the scenario that led to the burnout because I wasn't taking the time to uh, self care. I wasn't taking the time to assess those things that I could delegate. And then I didn't take the time to really take a hard look at what are the things that I say are important to me, but really are not given that level of importance that I say that they deserve.
Right. Absolutely. Uh, and that reminds me. So the one of the lingering things that I need to reassess for my values and energy exercise is uh, I say that I want to go to the gym, and I've been
Hmm.
paying this $73 for this gym membership persistently.
Yeah.
But I more so enjoy being outside and
Hmm.
walking or going in the mountains and doing things like that. So it makes no sense that I'm overstressing my finances when I could just conserve that and keep that for something else. And time management, like you said, that really plays a role in it. And it seems so simple, but for people to actually stick to their time management goals, that's another thing. They can design it really well, but they often don't stick to it. They allow other things to intrude, and so therein comes boundaries when you begin to conserve. uh,
Hmm.
so that, and that's a whole that we could do that for a whole hour, talk about boundaries.
Whew, tell me about it, because Dr. Kim faced it. I have not always been the best at boundaries, and and we talked about that on one of the previous podcasts. I have come to a point in my life that I now know that no is a complete sentence. That was
Absolutely.
something that I had to, I call, age into, because as a young woman, I was a known people pleaser, and people around me often took advantage of that. But now my no game is good. I can say no in several languages. No, yet, not even. And in sign, what is it? Body language, everything. Really? Give them the face, because no, not doing it.
No.
Without explanation, because I had to learn to face it, that I have the right to say no, that I get to decide what my boundaries are, and other people don't get to give them to me.
Right. And it gives people the opportunity to be creative for their solutions and creative for their next opportunity. Like I always say, no is next opportunity. Okay, well, she can't assist me with
That.
that. How can I? What do I need to discover? How can I be a little more resilient?
Hmm.
What else is available? So I love
So
that.
do you do anything special with solar part? Because I know that you work with a lot of corporations and a lot of executives. But do you do anything with solopreneurs, or just individuals in your practice of being the Dr. Burnout?
Absolutely, especially working because I find a lot of young executives, mothers, and that there are so many things that they're doing and controlling and supporting and assisting with that they don't even have time to enjoy their own lives. Everybody is legacy building and wealth building and creating generational wealth that they're not living
Mhm.
their lives. So we have to
Okay.
do a lot of mindset shifting and reassessing our values and creating new experiences and allowing them to enjoy the lives that they've actually created. Sometimes that results in them choosing a different profession. Other times it results in them setting healthier boundaries at their workplace and delegating appropriately, and using everything at their disposal to create a healthy it, work-life balance is somewhat of a myth, but
Hmm.
there can be work-life integration, and that's where there's an adequate give and take, because sometimes let's let's face it, on Face It Friday, sometimes work does become the priority, but it
Right. Right.
shouldn't be a persistent state. It c-
Okay.
it should be project based, based on the situation or a circumstance or something that comes in urgency. And other time, I mean, there have absolutely been times that I have had a calendar booked, but if I get the call that my there's a family emergency, everything drops. I, I don't
Yeah.
I don't finish what I'm doing at work. It's my family comes first, and I absolutely believe that.
Now, what do you do when it comes to when someone comes to you and just says, I've tried the steps that you so, and they seem resistant to the process itself. Is there anything you can do to help that person?
So let me just repeat. You said basically they said, though I've tried everything, I've done this, and they're just resistant to the
Because there are
process.
those people that often come back. You'll say you have your 5C system, you have all these things going on, but there's always those outliers that just for whatever reason, because of their own limiting beliefs, feel like they've tried everything. Is there anything or a tip you can give them to say maybe look at it differently for how they can prevent burnout?
Well, and I don't want to say I'm the queen of reframe,
Mm-hmm.
but but I do have a way when I work with clients of reframing circumstances and situations so that they have a different perspective. They discover things that they were not aware of. Um,
Okay.
especially when we work one on one, and then they become more open. So, because I ask, if nothing else, humor me and let's try it this way. If they will give
Right.
it an honest effort, um, then it can work. They will absolutely get changes. But if there's someone who's so resistant that they don't want to try anything, then I suggest, well, come back when you do, when you are ready.
When you're
Um,
all right. Okay.
because you do have to be ready for transformation. You do have to be ready for change. There is such a thing as going too fast, as making changes too fast. Because I don't know if you've ever had animals or try to, like you said, try to make a horse drink. Try to make
Yes.
make an animal do something when they're ready. And it's the same things with humans. If we are so wrapped up in fear or an unwillingness to change, that will be the result that you seek. Um, so sometimes it's allowing them space and working on something else, creating um, some trust that you can
Right.
assist them through that process.
Right.
And then more than likely they're prepared to do so. If we can accomplish a smaller goal, they'll be prepared for that next bigger step. Because what they're really saying is, I'm afraid that this is not going to work.
Okay. And one of the things that I thought was interesting when we talked, as you talked about the mindset shifts that are required to just avoid burnout in general. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think the biggest mindset shift is the realization that we're not that important. And I say that with a grain of salt, but so many of us make ourselves the center of
Mm,
everything, that things will fall apart if we're not around. And the reality is that these businesses that you're in, these workplaces, no matter where you are, from CEO to the smallest level employee, if you drop dead, if you pass,
oh, tell me, Doc. Go right there, because I had that problem when I left my job. I thought, oh my God, and guess what? It kept on going, even though I was going.
it
Mm.
absolutely did. That happened with the Marriott CEO. He was replaced within 2 weeks. Now, that doesn't mean that they didn't love him, that they didn't care about him, that they didn't revel in everything that he did for the organization, but that organization will continue.
Absolutely.
People's lives will continue. That's the biggest mindset shift, that you have to realize that you're not that important. And to delegate and allow things to exist beyond you. Quit trying to control and manipulate everything. Control and manipulate it isn't all. I don't see that necessarily as a bad word. People almost take it as an offense,
Hmm.
and it also means when you're controlling, you're also trying to manage, to decrease, to change, to shift. So
Mhm.
it isn't always a nefarious intent, but it's a stressful way to live your life, trying to manage and manipulate others.
And that's okay. We have little music for the thing. That's the best part about lives, Dr. Kimberly. Do not worry about that. I always say if we play some music, an alarm goes off, a kid walks in, a dog barks, we're going to bring it into the show. Because on Face It Friday, we face the fact that sometimes we don't always turn off our phones, because I know I've done it plenty of times. And other times, family members have no respect for live interviews.
This
I've
is
had it
true.
happen on many occasions. And that's part of too, because those kind of things can get you frustrated and lead to burnout when, what do you call it? The unexpected happens. And then all of a sudden you get a little bit stressed out. And then before you know it, you're like, ah. But here on Face It Friday, we roll with it.
Roll.
Yes, we do. Dr. Kim, I also know that you have a 5-day challenge that's going to be coming up sometime at the end of February, early March. I know the date hasn't been set yet, but would you mind telling us what that's going to be like and where we can get some information? But I'm going to put your information at the bottom so those people, once they hear about the challenge, want you to go over there to our websites and check it out.
Absolutely. This is going to be 5 days. Five
Mm-hmm.
days. I will be in the challenge. And like some of the other challenges where it's an assistant, I will be in the challenge, and it's going to be an accountability challenge. So many
Okay.
people have set goals, targets, and here we are, February 4th. And
Mm-hmm.
my guess is that many of those resolutions and things that we were going to do, they've fallen off. So we're going to create some accountability and begin to unlock some of those things that have allowed you to self sabotage, that have allowed you not to follow through, to help you set some boundaries. We're going to uncover some emotional triggers. And
Okay.
I know that's a lot in 5 days, but we can do it. We're going to accomplish it. I'm making it a very small group, no
Mm-hmm.
more than 10 to 15 people,
Okay.
because I want to ensure that people get the transformation. And it's a very affordable group. It's less than $50. So I,
Okay.
I want to help people make those shifts that they've been desiring.
Well, you just make sure that when the dates get solidified, that you let me know so we can announce it here on Face It Friday, so people can sign up and be a part of it. And if you look down right now, scrolling across the bottom is a banner, tells you how you can connect with Dr. Kimberly, either going to her link tree at Dr. Burnout or at drkimberlywilson.com. Dr. Kimberly, we want to, before we wrap this show up, what we want to talk about briefly too here is that you also coach individually. And I know that's something that you do in addition to taking speaking engagements. There's so many things that you do. What would you say has been the thing out of all of these things that you do that just really light you up?
Out of everything that I do, what really lights me up is when someone actually puts into practice the things that I've been coaching them with, and the surprise, and I'm about to tear up even just thinking about some of the transformations when they get the life that they thought they never could have,
Mm,
and they're enjoying their loved ones, and they're seeing people thrive when they let go and let life happen, and they get to enjoy so many other things. That brings me the biggest joy, because my goal is to cure 5,500 women of burnout in honor of my grandmother's legacy. So
mm.
she passed away at the age of 55, so that's how I arrived at that number, and to create 100 healthy workplace cultures.
Now that's awesome. I'm all about doing things for grandmas, because my second edition, Dr. Kim, as we've discussed, is coming out in March, and we're going to bring it out on my grandmother's birthday, because all we throughout the story are sayings from my grandmother, and I'm really excited about, like you, to honor her legacy by putting something out that shows what she poured into me, and I'm really excited about that. And for those of you that may have not heard in the beginning, I'm going to put the thing up again and discuss this just briefly. On February 11th, I will be having a launch party for the second edition of my book, Soul Searching. And I'm really excited about that because it is chock full of a lot of things that my grandmother taught me. It is also uh, filled with just positive, practical tips on how you can do a soul search, how you can move to the next level and stop narrating all those negative beliefs that we have a tendency to do when we're in a place of not quite sure where we want to go. And that's why I wanted Dr. Kimberly here for Face It Friday when we talk about burnout. And I think it's important that as entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, business people, business owners in general, that we begin to tap into what it is that is going to help us not get in a state of burnout. And this is how you can do it. Number T, the letter T, you need to transform your mindset. You use the concepts and principles that Dr. Kimberly talked about to move you out of a state of burnout so that you can live your best life now. Then you announce to the world what you're willing to do so that you don't get to burnout or that you don't stay in burnout, and you get some accountability. How can you get some accountability? She just told you. Come to her 5-day challenge that's going to be the date to be announced soon, and get some accountability around what you need to do so that you can move past or out of or stay out of burnout. And then we want you to prepare. You're going to prepare and take care of making sure you delegate those things that you can give to someone else. Take some stuff off your plate. Stop trying to multitask. That's a misnomer, but we'll talk about that on another show. But the main thing is to just prepare yourself so that you can live in a state that is stress free and free of burnout. Then I want you to imagine, that's the eye in the tapping method, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to imagine, what would your life look like if you weren't a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest, always losing? It would look peaceful, it would look happy, and it would bring much joy. And then I want you to end, nurture those thoughts of what life without burnout could look like. And I know you can tap into a burnout free life. Dr. Kimberly, do you have any final thoughts for our audience?
Well, I you summed it up pretty well, but the one thing that I would like to leave them with is to say to yourself, how much better can it get if I begin to make these shifts in my life? How much better can it get?
I like that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been another episode of Talk to Me on a Face It Friday, and we face the fact that burnout does not have to be your destiny. So, if you're looking for a way to move past burnout, then you need to connect with Dr. Kimberly, and all her information has been scrolled several times across the board, but I'm going to put it down here one more time just for those of you that are listening right now so that you will know that there is help. You do not have to stay in a state of burnout. And just remember, the choices you make today will be the reality you live tomorrow. Choose wisely. Thanks, Dr. Kim.
Thank you.